Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lunch and Life with Sharon and
Robin Joy.
I swear we have to keep these bloopers. Every time I hit record, something comes up and it's like, start again.
Yeah, it was only our second take, so not so
Yeah,
bad.
so that's good. That's actually good. Good progress. So we've been talking this month, we spoke about Simone Biles and anxiety and just this, shift of what's going on in the world. And, we really want to continue the conversation because a lot of anxiety is creeping back into people's lives and it's starting to overwhelm us.
I think it's so true. And I think it's really important we keep the conversation open and going because, people are going back to colleges now. So everyone's trying to reemerge, right? So, I mean, I'm happy for the college age kids, the school age kids, but everyone's still uneasy, right? And everyone still has to trust their own decisions because, yes, we're trying to reemerge, but then you watch anything on the news and it's like, do you want to shrink back or do you want to go on? And so it's really this, you have to do you. And that's kind of the whole conversation of this month is make choices that you're comfortable with and trust your decisions and your actions.
Yeah, and it's really easy to disconnect from yourself and not trust because we get glued to the TV, right? So we're watching the news or we pick up our cell phones and we've got these notifications that come on and it's all this noise that it's hard to just stop and trust you. And,
Totally.
and then it's hard to have this wondering, this fear of, am I being judged? Am I judging somebody else?
Totally. I mean, for instance, I was out, Dan and I were out locally in town, not this weekend, the weekend prior, listening to music, whatever. We were with friend neighbors and just out publicly at picnic tables in this little backyard thing and talking about the variants Delta and now is it Lambda? Delta,
Yes.
Lambda? Okay,
Yes.
so those two variants. And all of our kids are all adult kids. So, but we're just talking about Loudoun County, the area, and the school board and the votes going on about masking or not masking, that whole thing. And these people that were sitting 2 tables away happened to be listening. And we were all having our own conversation. We weren't even arguing, but we were just talking. And of course, it led to other things in the news, chimed on in, which was okay. Like it wasn't anything that we were uncomfortable with, but they just brought in their opinion. And so it really makes you think though, right? Because then suddenly if they're listening, other people are listening. So you probably could have brought out a microphone and had a whole stand-up show going on because people really do have opinions. So
Yeah.
Is it right for them to have an opinion? You answer that. I don't know. Right?
Well, they can have an opinion, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to chime in
or impose their opinion on you.
Right, exactly. And, having that opinion, but if it's unsolicited, and not being asked. And I think that's actually really important too, because so many times we want to offer advice to people. We want to tell people what to do and it becomes unsolicited where the person didn't ask for it. So don't tell me. And, don't be an a-hole. Don't judge me. Yeah, don't be an asshole.
I think that's our new term for this month. Sharon and I were talking about this, everyone, and we're like, don't judge me, just don't be an asshole.
Right. Right. All. And there's a way to be without the ego getting involved. And that's where I think the biggest problem lies is that we're thinking with our ego, we're thinking with our heads more than really trusting our hearts and trusting our intuition. And this goes back to so many other conversations that you and I have. Right. And that then affects our gut. It affects our mind. It affects our mental health, right? So it's like we see this vicious cycle that just keeps happening.
Right. And the whole stress in the body, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we feel it in body parts. We feel it everywhere. So what might work for you, and you've made that decision, might not work for me.
Right.
Of course, we're connected, so it does work for each of us, but it might not work for somebody else. So the point of the matter is that, yes, you can have a conversation, if you can have a reasonable conversation and you're solicited to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, you look sometimes on social media and it's just blowing up, which is frankly ridiculous. People, like, we are adults, so can we please set the standards for the younger people of this world to not use social media for those reasons? But what works for you might not work for me,
Well,
and
it's
that is
interesting
okay.
because, you and I were talking about Facebook, before we started the call, and I barely go on it anymore because it's so much noise.
Yeah.
And I think we also talked about, like, our kids are barely on Facebook anymore. It's just, there's too much noise. And if we really think about, yes, we're all different. We're all going to come at situations differently. And it's asking yourself, what is your boundary? And we've talked about that too.
Right.
What's my boundary, and where am I going to spend my time of what's important to me? Is the news that important? Do I need to know all of that? Do I feel like I'm missing out? And it's really important, like, ask yourself these questions and write it down, because at the end of the day, it has to resonate and really feel, you need to be in alignment. And being in alignment is feeling calm on the inside.
Mhm.
Because when it's not, and it's the opposite, then that, the frenetic energy happens, the anxiety increases, and that's not in alignment. So finding, for you, asking yourself the questions, is this real? Is it really true? What do I believe? And what are my boundaries? So that you can breathe and find what works for you.
See,
And
I love that.
Facebook doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you just said, because that's really the whole idea of joy lifestyle, right? That's where joy is more of the lifestyle, because you're just confident in who you are, and you're living for you and those around you, but you know what you're about, what you stand for, what your balance and boundaries are, and you go with that.
Yeah. And then it's about not making the other person wrong.
Right. And it's not even, I think where it's gotten so muddied, where we have to stop this. And this is not just here, it's around the world. It's not politics anymore, right? It doesn't mean that you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a Libertarian, you're independent. It doesn't mean any of that anymore. It's just be you. What are your balance, and what's your balance boundaries? What are your non-negotiables? What is important for you? And instead of having those conversations with yourself and not hiding behind something or facade or something that someone else is telling you you should be, or you should have done this, or worrying about something else. And it's hard. You have to take the time to answer the questions for yourself.
Yeah, it's a great point, because right at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
And that should be what we remember first.
That's what we should have, the human being party.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that. I think, it's it just, for today, for everyone who's watching, take that time for yourself. And if you find that you're going to sleep, you have the news on before bed at 11 o'clock at night, and you're not able to sleep, and not really connecting the dots of that, it's making you anxious, or you're waking up anxious because you're still thinking about the news from the night before, then you have to ask yourself, like, does this really serve me? And let me change that habit. Let me not turn on the TV. Let me read a book instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And shut down. Like, we have to shut everything down.
Yeah. And give yourself that space and the time. Honor it. Honor yourself. Self-compassion, right? Goes back to, we just keep repeating this because it's so important, because it's so easy to slip back into those old habits.
It takes time. I mean, we've done the journey, and we're still doing the journey personally, you and I, right?
Yes,
it takes
absolutely.
time, everyone, to really change patterns, old patterns and habits. You listen to books and everything else on neuroplasticity, and it says, it could be 28 days, it could be 30 days, it could be 6 months. It's just the more you repeat, the more the science of it, the neuronal patterns will change, but it's just repeat. And so give yourself that time. And it doesn't, again, you're an individual. It doesn't have to happen for you the same day that it's going to happen for me.
Yeah. Don't compare yourself.
So it's just do you. And guess what? You will show up better for everybody else.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to end the segment.
Sounds good to me.
As always, I love unpacking lunch and life with you, Robin.
I love it as well, Sharon.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.